welcome back to the World Big Data and Analytics Show. And I hope you all had, firstly, a great networking break. I hope you could meet the sponsors and get to know about each other better. Well, right now at the World Big Data and Analytics Show, we're on our panel discussion on reimagining data governance with customer at the center. Well, after several pendulum swings, including a sweep through free-form self-service analytics, current research points to a return to more governed data and analytic environments for improved CX. It's imperative to create a robust data governance system that enables your organization to successfully execute your digital strategy. While we're looking at talking about expanding the scope of data from website and apps to intelligent physical products, we're looking at talking about consumer awareness and expectations. We're looking at talking about swapping value for data. Companies should be able to make a fair exchange in value for their data, and also designing for transparency and trust, where incorporating data privacy and security considerations into product development from the start. Well, we're elated to be joined by our panelists. First up, Dietmar Bohmer, the Chief Analytics Officer, Tyme, joining us. Well, Dietmar joined Tyme 5 years ago, currently based in Singapore. He built up their analytics and data team, as well as overseeing the design and build of the data lake and advanced analytics platform with the ML pipeline. Thank you so much, Mr. Bohmer, for joining us today live. Great to have you.
Hi all, thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Also joining us on the stage and screen now is Varun Verma, APAC Head of Data and Analytics, the HEINEKEN company. Well, Varun, being the APAC Head of Data Analytics for HEINEKEN Asia Pacific, he's somebody who brings over a decade of experience in this field and has held various roles in the top tier companies like PwC Consulting, Visa Worldwide, Accenture Consulting, and Alliance Insurance. Thank you so much, Varun, for joining us today.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Looking forward.
Pleasure. Also joining us now on the stage and screen is John Funtanilla, the AVP, Advanced Analytics Lead, Nestle. Well, John is dubbed as the Philippines' strongest data scientist in a competitive strength athlete and an analytics professional. He's somebody who most recently won the Nestle's Global Insights Award for his team's work in predicting sales volume amongst the volatility brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you so much, John, for joining us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Likewise. Now joining us on the screen is Leonard Hartono, data expert from Bukalapak. Well, Leonard is a data expert and currently holds the position as a data manager in Bukalapak. He finished his Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the Pensacola Christian College, Florida. He's somebody who's received his master's degree in subsea engineering from the University of Houston in 2015. Thank you so much, Leonard, for joining us today live. I believe you're on mute, Leonard.
Thank you. Good. Glad to be here.
Likewise. And ladies and gentlemen, now it is time to introduce to you the moderator of this panel discussion. We're joined by Alex A. Ustaris, Group CIO and CTO and Head of Shared Services Center, Hijo Resources Corporation. Well, Alex is an expert in leading organizational transformation initiatives to future-proof the enterprise, including digital and information technology and shared services that improves and involves CX, digital business solutions, smart agriculture, industry 4.0, smart city, etc. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us today live.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So ladies and gentlemen, with this, as you can see, we have our eminent panelists on your stage and screen. With this, it is now time to pass on the live rein to Alex. And for all the audience who's watching us, if you may have any questions directed to our panel, please feel free to type it up in the Q&A section. We'll take it up at the end of the panel if time allows. Over to you, Alex.
Hi, good afternoon again, everyone. The 40 minutes that's been allowed for this panel discussion seems too short to cover all the nuances of this topic. In order to manage our time, we will focus on the drivers of customer data analytics and governance. What kind of customer experience is required to gain customer trust and transparency? And what are the strategies in optimizing the value of customer data to the business? Now, for the first question, what are the main drivers for governing data and analytics, particularly of customers? Now, Dietmar, you work in the banking sector, which is highly regulated. I suppose regulatory compliance is one of the drivers, correct? And then what other drivers are critical for data governance as far as you're concerned?
Absolutely. Yeah. As you mentioned, we focused on or run a number of banks across various geographies, and to your point, it's a very highly regulated environment, and not just in general the banking, but also actually data governance and data management itself is also highly regulated. But to be honest, to be a data-driven organization, all of these principles have to be embedded in your day-to-day operations. So whether or not it's governed or not governed doesn't really make a big difference. The fact that we're a data-driven organization has meant that as we build up the organization, we've made sure that all these principles are embedded in our daily processes. So to make sure that the data analysts or the machine learning experts have full lineage of the data, to make sure that they can trace data back to source. They know exactly where it's coming from. They can see what transformations have happened on the data. We've got data dictionaries that everybody knows exactly the meaning of the data, that there's no discrepancy between interpretations of what data element gets used for what. And that really is around to making sure that whenever reports are generated for management, that they've got full confidence in the information that's presented to them when they need to make decisions on the back of that they know they can trust the information, they know what it means, and they know how to interpret it. So really building that trust into the analytics environment for your organization to become data-driven. Data governance is a really, really important pillar to that. But the second pillar where this also becomes really important, especially for us being in banking and sitting with a lot of sensitive customer data, also means there's sort of a second lens to this. Seeing customers' transactional behavior, knowing where they spend their money, what they spend their money is obviously very sensitive data and very personal data. So making sure that you treat that data with the right levels of control, that also get the trust from customers. Being a banking environment, it's all driven about trust. And if people don't trust your brand, they don't trust your environment, they're not going to put their hard-earned money with you. Or if you don't trust what you're going to do with the information. So that's also why it's also a very important pillar for us to make sure that customers actually have the confidence in not just using our platform, that the money would be safe, but also that the information that's derived off that behavior is treated with the right levels of security, trust, and respect that it deserves.
Thank you, Dietmar. So according to Dietmar, internal drivers are as compelling as external drivers, particularly understanding your customer behavior and understanding their preferences. So as a follow-up question, I'd like to ask Varun, for HEINEKEN, what other internal drivers are more compelling for you?
Sure, Alex. So while in Heineken, we also follow GDPR policy, since we are European company, and we definitely provide the right level of trust and support and respect to our customers as well, and especially consumers, so to say, in our business. What is interesting, let's say, with businesses like Heineken, while increasing our footprint, we actually acquire existing businesses. So the way Heineken actually has expanded so far is by having a lot of acquisitions within Asia and then in the other regions as well. And then with that, what happened, you always have a different landscape in terms of technology and data. And with that, what happens is, in order to actually create standardized business processes and also having right standardization in terms of your data, that's like one of the drivers that we essentially have to drive the data governance. Because if you have different data landscapes, and if you are unable to drive standardization, the scalability part is also something which is very hard to achieve. And that's the second driver, which is increasing the scalability of our data landscape from technical, business, and organizational point of view. That's the second driver that we have. And the third one, which is more about optimizing the cost, and that is something which is to be done. Let's say while we standardize, we feel that having more scalable solution and having more repurposable and reusable solution, we will be able to mitigate the cost going further. And therefore, there is this need of controlling the data and the data landscape which comes. So there should be, let's say, one uniform strategy when we look at our customers, our consumers, our product, our supplier, our material, and so on. So these are the three internal drivers, I can call it out, that are important for us to drive data governance, besides, of course, following GDPR policies.
Thank you for sharing, Varun. So as we look at data across your enterprise, it's very important for you to standardize, scale, and then optimize. Right. Guys, I will be in another event later today where I will be talking about data privacy, among other things. Data privacy is basically asking your customers their permission before you collect their data, disclosing what you intend to do with it, and your purpose of using the data. Now, I suppose there is some best practice for customer experience so that you can be successful in convincing your customers to share their data with you. Let me ask you, John, in your experience, what approaches and avenues of customer experience work well in collecting customer data? Are there strategies of Nestle that apply across different territories, or are there unique strategies for each country or territory? John?
Yeah, hi Alex. Sorry about that. So thank you for that question. Before I answer your question though, I just want to loop back to what Dietmar and Varun said. They mentioned something about gaining the customer trust. And I think that's very important when trying to collect customer information, because in recent years, customers are becoming more and more aware of the value of the data that we are sharing. A couple of years ago, if you asked me for my mobile number or my email number, I would readily give it to you. But what has happened in the past is that I discovered that my number is being given away to other companies, being sold to other companies. I'm being contacted by spammers and other companies. So basically, these companies are profiting from the data that I'm sharing with them. So I think, in my experience, it's very important to show our customers that there is a way where we can create a win-win situation where, because businesses want data and customers at the same time want their privacy. So there's a way to make everyone happy, and that's by, as I said, creating win-win situations for us and our customers. And one way to do that is to, once we have gathered all the data sets that we need for our analysis, or even before we collect it, it's important to explain to the customer why we are collecting their data, how we are going to use it, and what we are going to use it for. So just a quick example from the top of my mind. Recently, there was a data collection exercise for one of the brands of Nestle Philippines, and we wanted to collect the mailing addresses of our consumers. So one way to go about it is to ask them directly. But as I mentioned, since customers are more aware of the value of their data, they won't readily give it to us. So what we did was we tried to convince them into giving us their mailing address by telling them that sign up to our newsletter, give us your mailing address, and then we will mail you a recipe book. And this recipe book, of course, encourages them to use the cooking aids that we are selling. So in simple ways such as that, it's creating value for our customers. And I think that's the important thing, that the customers feel that they are getting something in return for the information that they are sharing. And I think we should always remember that when our customers share any personal information with us, they're taking a leap of faith, or they're trusting us that we won't lose it, or that we won't abuse their data. and they're trusting us not to spam them every 5 minutes and make their personal data vulnerable to others or share their data to anyone else. So I think once we communicate that properly to our customers and we can convince them that their data is safe with us, we're going to use this for this purpose, and we stick to that original agreement, then it will make data collection easier for us, for the businesses. In terms of best practices, we do have guidance from our regional offices, and basically that's their guideline for us. Whenever we're going to try to collect data from our customers, they always ask us, what are you where are you going to use this, how are you going to use it, and what's in it for the customer. So we should always ask ourselves what's in it for our customer.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. I can definitely relate because I also get a lot of spam text messages or even emails, and realize that they're getting my number, my contact information. So I agree with you that trust and transparency is important, and for the customers to understand what's in it for them, right? So that they will be able to share the data that we need from them. Now, I want to ask Leonard, from your perspective, I think the challenge is quite different in Bukalapak. You have online and offline customers. Do you have strategies for collecting data from both online and offline customers, Leonard?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Alex. So I think Bukalapak is a startup. It's a unicorn, and maybe it might be different than most traditional companies, where our velocity in collecting data is very fast. And it's not just the velocity of the data collection itself, but also the types of data that we collect. For example, we build new products all the time. And if every time we build a new product, it takes, there are challenges that come with it, such as the type of data that you're consuming, and the new kinds of tracking that you might have to do. Now, these issues, it can magnify really quickly if you don't have proper governance in place to make sure that the data that you collect is something that is fairly standardized, so that you can scale it. Otherwise, you're always going to be bogged down and challenged by, hold back by our speed in defining the data upfront. If you're always held back with that, then you cannot move very quickly. And as an organization, we're very data hungry. We want more data. We keep wanting more data, and we want to have more dimensions of our users, so that we can personalize everything and tailor it to their use. Some people may not like being called by telemarketers, but some people actually may do. And so you have to know which users would prefer what, and that requires a lot of dimension of data to be able to give you that sense of personalization. But you're always constrained also by privacy. You can't just collect everything you want, because there are regulations in place. There are things that if these are not controlled, it's easy for people to be able to misuse that data. And you have to have proper governance in place to make sure that things like that doesn't happen. You also have technology constraint, capability constraint. We have in Bukalapak, we have actually a large army of salespeople who go out to our offline customers, and to make sure they visit them, and and we want to collect data also on these salespeople. And a lot of it is unstructured data, because they have to input certain text for their report, and we have to make sure that we can ingest that data, translate it, and make it into something usable. And we have to invest in capabilities such as that also, to make sure that these treasure trove of information is actually usable.
Thank you, Leonard. So you collect data from both offline and online customers, and you curate all of that in one platform in order to optimize their value to your business. Is that right?
Yes,
Right.
correct.
Yeah, very good. Thanks. As a follow-up question, I'd like to ask, um, with all the customer data that we can collect, what are the key strategies for optimizing the business value of such data? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think the value in business is always about action. Like, what can you do with this data from a business perspective? Because it's about levers, right? Even what I mentioned before, which is like mapping between what users, what intervention can we give users to make sure that they're happy with us, they're retaining with us, they want to try us, and these levers are the things that you can get from your data, right? And the more dimensions of data that that we have, then we can personalize these treatments, how we approach our customers. And the problem that usually we have is that we don't have enough data to be able to personalize our users enough. And let's take an example, like complaint. We have people complain to us about some things maybe that they experience that's not so good. And yet when we look at these users, we actually just compare them naively against users who doesn't complain. Actually, these users have better retention, and the reason for that is that the people the ones you actually have to worry about are the ones who are not complaining, because they're the ones who have a bad experience and we don't know about them. And so we want to make sure, like, these users also, how do we find out whether or not they're having a good experience? And that's we need more data on that. And how do we incentivize users to give us that information, even though there's in general maybe there's nothing in it for them, but how can we make it so that there is something for them so that we can better collect these data? And so once you have these higher quality data, then you can translate that into levers about what can we do as a business to treat them better, to make them retain better on the long term.
Right. Yeah, as we collect more and more data from our customers, it's a continuous process of discovery in order to understand the business, the value for the business, and also to impart value to the customers. Thank you. Now for Dietmar, I'd like to ask, is there a way to ascribe economic value to customer data?
Yeah, sure. So sort of particular to our line of business, being in banking, people open up other transactional banking accounts, and based on how they use it and how deeply they use that directly translate into revenue to us. Or if we underwrite loans, or we issue loans to customers, we charge interest, there's fees, but there's also losses on the other side. There's a portion of customers that don't pay you back. So there's very direct revenues associated to those actions. And so if I maybe focus on the sort of lending side, which is probably the most obvious example, is that we need to make an assessment of if somebody applies for a loan, whether or not we'll lend that money to them or not. As part of that action, we as banks obviously have a responsibility to make sure that if we lend money, we try and do it as responsibly as possible. So yes, a customer has a need for those funds, but we need to assess whether or not they firstly have the financial means to meet that commitment, that they can repay that loan, or secondly have the financial discipline to actually stick to a repayment plan, can they budget, etc. So we need to assess those factors. Of course, in the short term, yes, you can meet a need of a customer where they need cash for a specific purpose. But if they don't have the ability to repay that, you actually put them in a worse position in the long term by putting that financial strain on them and their family. So by knowing exactly what the value is of a loan, by calculating the lifetime value of a customer, we can assess with every additional loan that we offer, what is the value that we bring to the organization. So if we assess a new data set that could potentially assist us in understanding the risk appetite of a customer, there's sort of two things where the data can play a role into. It either can improve our ability to discriminate good risk from bad risk, and we can also then once again directly calculate what is the business benefit from that by reducing the losses. What is the value to the business of that? Or if we decide we want to keep the loss rates the same, we can thus book more or additional business into the organization. So once again, there's a very direct relationship that you can measure. So based on how much the data improves your ability to discriminate from where you are today, you can size that opportunity, or how much additional business that you can book based on either existing data that you've just optimized or understood better, or external data that you partner with. There's some traditional data sources that the banks use, like credit bureau data, and then you can directly calculate what is the value of that data to the organization.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dietmar. So ascribing economic value to customer data actually helps you understand what products they need, and perhaps customize some of the products based on the value that you ascribe to your customer data, right? Now, we all know that there's a wide range of technologies available to curate and consume customer data. Varun, what to you are the top 1 or 2 technologies that can fully optimize the business value of customer data?
So I would take a step back on this question, and I probably rephrase it that, okay, what do we need in order to support our entire customer, or not only customer but data lifecycle in general, to manage and govern and to ensure that we have the right control to assist our organization, business processes, and technology landscape. So I mean, what is important, and I think maybe from governing point of view, there are various landscape the various lenses that we can actually put on the top of the data landscape. So having capability, data governance, data lineage, and data control, catalog, data dictionary, these are some like core assets by which you can actually drive the better data governance. And having the view on the full data lifecycle is something which is very, very important in order to drive robust and clear data governance processes. So in terms of technologies, there are so many tools that are available, and some of them are fit for purpose and some of them are generic in nature that you could actually use in order to drive your different processes across your data lifecycle. Some of them that we use actually in our company are like Atacama, PowerMe, Colibra, for various different purposes. The one most important that I find it, let's say, that organization should really have huge focus on is on the master data management, how you are enabling your master data management. Because if you have a better and strong master data management capability and processes, that helps actually in order to, one, reduce the time to analytics, because the amount of time that you put in terms of finding out what is the single source of truth is something which is easy to achieve, number one. Number two is it also gives you the advantage of directly working, I mean, especially the advantage for the data science community and insights enablement community, that we can directly work on the data set which is analysis friendly or analysis ready. Otherwise, there is a huge process in terms of the data mapping that takes place in an organization. So having a right focus on the master data management is something which is a key for every organization to make sure, and especially like companies like FMCGs in HEINEKEN space, where there are so many processes. And to be honest, our data is never going to be static. It is going to evolve continuously. Today, we are basically talking about our ERP data. Tomorrow, we are also talking about directly dealing with consumer, and then with consumer also you have more data points because you would like to actually enhance the customer experience, so you would want to collect more data points that can drive more customization. So what will happen in this entire process is that you lose out what are the key components that are important for you to make sure, how do you manage your master data management? And that's something which is a key asset in terms of data governance protocol. The second is more about, ensuring that you have the full visibility from start to end, or maybe from end to start. You can go forwards, or you should be able to go backwards, because that's something which is very important. And then, most often, more often than not, I mean, we see that this is a usual challenge, because the data is coming from various sources, and it is very difficult to actually find out the right source and then really investigate and then correct it over the period of time, because it is not also about the transformation of our processes, but it is also the transformation of basically ensuring that we have the right quality, right standard, and right structure of the data, so that, I mean, it can reduce the time to insights and analytics. If we, let's say, try to do all the fixes at the downstreams, yes, you can do, and most of the organizations actually now spending time to do it on the downstreams, but that's not something which is right. They should rather do it on upstream, in order to make sure that first you avoid the duplication of effort, second you also avoid the amount of investment that you are doing in terms of your resources for such initiatives. Third, that you should be able to be more customer centric here. And then what is customer centric is somebody who is a data consumer. So if you are not able to enable your data scientist and insights generator with your data, that entire process is basically just running for the sake of it. I mean, you need to really make sure that it goes to the level where it becomes analyzable. Otherwise, I mean, it's the storage where there will be another additional set of exercises which the downstream team members would need to do, and which jeopardize the whole seamless experience for the data scientist. So in a summary, master data management, and then having the right the data lineage in order to trace it forward and backwards is something which is very, very important from the technology landscape or technology point of view.
Thank you, Varun, for sharing. I think I can relate. Apart from strong technologies to implement, there has to be strong connections between people, process, and technology in order for you to be successful in optimizing data. Thank you. Now, for John, what is your fearless forecast of where advanced analytics technologies are headed in the next 2 to 3 years?
My forecast for advanced analytics, I think there's a need to transition from big to small and wide data. As we have seen last year, I'm speaking from my experience. A lot of our models rely heavily on historical data, and when COVID-19 hit and the pandemic hit, a lot of our forecasting models are suddenly failing, and we couldn't. We were having a hard time creating our sales forecast for the coming months, and there was a need to be able to operate with less data and apply small data techniques and adaptive machine learning. So I think in the next few years, we all have learned from this lockdown, and we need to learn how to leverage wide data, meaning leveraging X analytics techniques, and enable these techniques and synergize it with with a variety of small and unstructured and structured data sources. So what we did when we did our forecasting during the pandemic was we actually tried to use business insights and some of our researches from our qualitative studies, and we tried to find a way to sort of adjust our forecast, and this helped our team land on a much more realistic forecast than what our previous models were telling us. So I think for the next few years, I see that we will be transitioning from big to small and wide data.
Thank you, John, for sharing. So it's not just about being able to scale up, but also being able to scale down whenever the circumstances require you to scale down, and being able to curate and draw out meaningful analytics from your data. as you scale up or you scale down. Now, I think at this point, we can take a couple of questions from the audience. I think we can take one.
Alex, we still don't have any audience questions, but in case if they do come in, I'll keep you posted on the same. Thank you.
All right. I think we've covered the entire agenda that we aim to cover for today. Let me just synthesize all the discussion this afternoon. I guess at this point, we all agree that business can greatly benefit with curated customer data and analytics. In the process of collecting data, we just have to be cognizant of customer sensitivities as well as regulatory requirements. We have to help our customers become aware of data privacy regulations and then understand their expectations too. In order to do that, we have to design customer experience with transparency and trust at the forefront. Well, folks, it's been a lively and insightful chat that we've had today. Thank you to our panel members, to everyone in the audience, and to the organizers. Till next time, have a good day, everyone.
Thank you so much, Alex, for that wonderful session, moderated. Thank you so much, Varun, Leonard, Dietmar, for joining us today on this amazing panel discussion. We definitely had a lot to take away from this. Thank you once again.